Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Apex Racing TV, and for one final time in this season, welcome back to the Operation eMotorsports Racing League. This is the 8th and final round of the season, coming to you tonight from Sebring. My name is Ron Mons. Joining me in the commentary booth is Charles Michelle, and in the virtual production hall, however, old buddy Joshua Wilkie. Well, Charles, it all comes down to this. The 8-race season, which kicked all the way off back in August, is now set to come to a close tonight. And to do it, we're heading to one of the best tracks on the calendar. But for the first time this season, we've got a little bit of moisture in the air. So, Charles, I think there's going to be a hectic one.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. It's been a fantastic season. I've just thoroughly enjoyed this. All coming down to the last race at Sebring. Yeah, it looks like a little bit of liquid sunshine out there tonight. So it's going to make things even a little more challenging than what we would normally have.
Oh, it is going to throw a huge wrench in the works for these drivers. This is the first time across all the practice, qualifying, and race sessions that we've had all season long in which we've had to worry about weather. And hey, of course it's going to happen when we're racing down in Florida. But before we annoy any Floridians tuning into this broadcast tonight on Apex Racing TV, I think we should talk about this season in a whole. It has been brilliant thus far. As I mentioned in my open, kicked off all the way back on August the 27th for the first race of the season at Daytona. Then we went to tracks like Road America 1 week after that, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Watkins Glen, Road Atlanta, Spa, followed by a 1 week break for Petit Le Mans, and we're bringing this season to a close with a race 1 week ago at Sonoma, and the racing action tonight here at Sebring on Sunday, the 22nd of October on a Tuesday. Part of me kind of wishes it was a Sunday, but nevertheless, it is a Tuesday night here, maybe a Wednesday morning, possibly, wherever you're tuning into this broadcast from, but really excited to get this season, this final conclusion to this absolutely fantastically entertaining season. We've had an up and down season full of a lot of different winners. The championship storylines have been pretty compelling all throughout this season, and just from my perspective as a broadcaster and a commentator, whatever sort of term I want to apply to myself, I think this season has just been absolutely fantastic. And from my perspective, it has been awesome to get to learn about Operation Motorsports and all the people that put on this stuff behind the scenes. Operation Motorsports is a veteran-led and operated 501c3 nonprofit foundation based in Raleigh, North Carolina, and Bryan, Ontario, Canada, serving American and Canadian service members and veterans. Operation Motorsports is based on 3 core values: team, identity, and purpose, and supports the recovery of medical medically retiring or retired service members affected by military service through motorsports opportunities. Operation Motorsport's motto is one at a time. So if you ever see hashtag one at a time, now you know that behind that hashtag is a wonderful cause supporting veterans. Veteran recovery opportunities, utilizing motorsports opportunities, veteran recovery opportunities, and still a sense of team, identity, and purpose. Veteran recovery opportunities through the lens of diversionary therapy, motorsports immersion, and academy programs. Veteran recovery through motorsports, one at a time. Visit operationmotorsports.org to learn more. Charles, as a veteran yourself, I've asked you all throughout this season to talk us a little bit more about all the fantastic work that goes on behind the scenes at Operation Motorsports. Not only are you a veteran of the Army, you're also a veteran of this series, so you're definitely a lot more qualified to talk about the beautiful work that goes on behind the scenes than I am.
Yeah, absolutely. The administrators, the people who are managing this series, always do a fantastic job. It's very well put on. They're really conscientious about making sure everything is just right. And likewise for the organization as a whole. We talked with the driver we're showing on screen right now, Tyler Gilmet, who had his last activation a couple of weeks ago at Road Atlanta for Petite Le Mans. Actually, not in the Petite Le Mans, but in the Michelin Pilot Challenge with his race team. So it's that kind of work that Operation Motorsports does that gets these guys immersed into racing, both in the sim and in real life. And it's just fantastic.
And hearing a lot of the stories from these drivers in the post-race interviews that we do on these broadcasts, talking about the feeling of brotherhood here at Operation Motorsports in this league, it's really awesome to see. The world of racing, a lot of people can get caught up in the smoke and fire of a very competitive season, trying to beat each other to victory lane, try and grab as many positions as you possibly can. Sometimes battles on the racetrack can come to blows, but the sense of just community that you have in this series is really awesome to see. Whenever I get an opportunity to cover a series, which just feels like a family more than anything else, it's really just a fantastic series to cover, and this season has been fantastically entertaining. We're looking at the prototypes during this qualifying session. A friendly reminder to those tuning into the series for the first time here on Apex Racing TV. Got a 20-minute long open qualifying session split into the LMP2 cars running on the racetrack right now in the first 10, and we got a massive pack of GT3 race cars ready to hit the track during the second half. But you got these LMP2 cars out there on the racetrack trying to dance around this racetrack, which is going to be damp all throughout.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to go back to your statement about family, this is not the family you were born with. This is the family you volunteered to join. So, it's all these drivers out here have they have shared experiences. They've all been through basic training. They've all been deployed somewhere. So it's all those stories, some that you talk about and some that you don't. And that's really what makes this another thing that makes this special. But yeah, Sebring is a kind of a beast of a track. When it's dry, now that we've got the rain, it's going to make your braking distances longer. It's going to make the car a little more difficult to control. You have to be very smooth on throttle and braking application. And just kind of hope to survive, because it's going to make even the multi-class aspect of it, where you're trying to pass lower cars, is going to make that even more difficult, because the GT cars are, don't have quite the same downforce, and you put those guys even with rain tires on a wet track, it just makes them that more difficult to just kind of sit them in the apex of the corners.
And the big thing with this race as well, it's fixed conditions, so these conditions aren't really going to change come time for the 45-minute long race that we have coming up that's set to begin in about 15 minutes time. So this is going to be the track conditions that we have all throughout tonight's festivities to bring this season to a close. Gonna be riding on board and having a fantastic view. That's heading down into turn number 15 right now towards the tail end of this circuit, going back out onto the old airport runways, and funnily enough, we're running doing the Operation Motorsports season finale here at this track, because I believe when this first opened up, it was actually a place for the Air Force during World War II, is I believe how this how the airport opened up in the first place. Of course, they decided to build a racetrack very similar to what happened in the UK after World War II. Most of the beautiful racetracks, Silverstone, for instance, kind of just augmented in a weird way onto old British RAF runways, so pretty cool to see the same thing going on here in the US. But Sebring has an absolutely fantastic ride, and even with the damp conditions, it's not dampening these drivers' spirits at all, certainly not dampening their enjoyment around this racetrack, and they're still saying some pretty good times in at the moment in the Pro Ben LMP2 class, which has been so up and down. Tyler Guillemette and Gregory Meismer have given us a fantastic fight, and it looks like that's going to continue here for this race. Guillemette currently on the pole in Pro Ben at a 154.590, my apologies, with Meismer about tick over a tenth of a second behind him as it stands currently in the Pro LMP2 class, which has just been so topsy-turvy. Pretty much all of the drivers that we have seen race in the Pro LMP2 category have grabbed at least one victory thus far. It's been a really hard class to try and be like, oh yeah, this is the standout star, because all these drivers have snagged at least one or two and sometimes even three victories in that Pro LMP2 category. Currently on pole is Martin Wallace at a 154.219. A little bit of a bigger gap there, it must be said, Charles, with about, I guess that would be 0.7 of a second between Wallace and Viceroy for the pole in Pro LMP2.
Yeah, I'm actually going back through and looking, and normally there was a little bit of a gap between the pros and the Pro Bens for qualifying in most of the races, but for tonight, we've actually got the Pro in P1, if you lump them together, and then the two Ben drivers are P2 and P3. So that's going to make for another additional twist as we've got different class cars in the mix in amongst each other, and looks like they've got some pretty good pace between Guillemette and Meismer. So we'll see how that all shakes out, and if that makes any difference as we move forward during the race.
I mean, they always say that rain is the great equalizer, so I guess we're seeing that get put on full display here at Sebring. This qualifying session, part of the qualifying session for the LMP2s, has now come to a close. Over 10 minutes on the board. Gonna see these GT3 race cars hit the track in just a couple of moments time, so it looks like it's going to be set in stone for the LMP2s. Gonna have the Pro Ben drivers sandwiched in the Pro LMP2 field. Gonna be starting P2 and P3 respectively. Of course, with the LMP2 cars and the GT3s for that matter, they don't separate them by class. They just have the LMP2s together and the GT3s together. Doesn't matter whether you're in the Pro Ben or Pro class in LMP2. Doesn't matter if you're in the Open or Ben class in GT3. Gonna be lumped together. That's gonna be a real interesting fight. I think, honestly, Charles, between those two classes in LMP2, the one that I'm going to be keeping my eye on is probably going to be Pro Ben, because Guillemette and Gregory Meismer have put on a fantastic show thus far this season. Meismer has 3 victories on the board. Guillemette has 4. Real possibility that those two drivers can end up on equal wins when everything is said and done. So just in my mind, that's going to be the class I'm looking out for. What's going to be the class that you're looking out for?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a very interesting race to watch. I think, like I said, we talked with Tyler at the end of the race last week after Greg had a disconnect, had a crash early. And I think Tyler said he needed to win the race tonight and get the fastest lap or a bonus point in order to take the championship victory. So that's going to make things very, very difficult and very challenging. So it'll be something to watch. And yeah, the class gridding is very similar to what you see in IMSA in the GTD class. The pros and the AMs, the Pro-Am cars are just lumped together. It's just the fastest lap times, and it's sorted in that order. So yeah, obviously, Colby Ohl has put on a show this season. Dominated. He's 7 for 7 in qualifying and in race wins. So he's obviously got the championship for the pros in GT3 sewn up. So now it's just see if we can get the season sweep, and then the rain is going to make that much more difficult.
Yeah, Corby has been absolutely fantastic all throughout this season. The driver of the number 3 car has been P1, not just in the open GT3 class, but really in the GT3s altogether. He has been the quickest by far. Even when he was driving in the Mercedes earlier on this season, he has been the apex predator thus far. So even going from the Mercedes to the Mustang, he has just been a force to be reckoned with. We're going to see if he can pull off that clean sweep this evening, and probably have to ask some of the drivers in this series for a broom when everything is said and done from this 8-race calendar. Corby has been absolutely fantastic. It's really the GT3 classes has seen 2 dominant drivers really come to the fold. Ian Carney in the Ben GT3 class, the beneficiary GT3 class that is. He already has 4 victories thus far this season. He's been pretty quick, and actually I think I need to correct myself and correct a small little typographical error in my notes. Ian Carney, I believe, actually has 5 victories thus far this season, so you can tell my public math skills here in the city of Philadelphia not really helping me out at all. He won races at Road America, the 2nd race of the season, Watkins Glen, the 4th race of the season, followed it up 1 week later at Road Atlanta, then went to Spa and grabbed another victory and won at Sonoma 1 week ago. So he has been fantastic in that beneficiary GT3 category. And speaking of fantastic, we should probably talk about one of the other fantastic partners in the world of Operation Motorsports, that being CrowdStrike, which is a proud partner with Operation Motorsports to advance their mission of empowering military veterans through motorsports. Their support extends far beyond traditional funding, addressing critical business needs and enabling Operation Motorsports to focus on key engagements, outreach, and expanding veteran opportunities. This foundational support ensures that Operation Motorsports can effectively deliver its programs and create meaningful experiences for veterans in the racing world. Additionally, this partnership facilitates the integration of veterans into prominent roles within IMSA and the SRO, including crew member positions and the marketing team as well. CrowdStrike also engages in employee resource group events and volunteers in supporting Operation Motorsports at various SRO races and contributing to the building and distribution of veteran and family care packages. This collaborative effort enriches the motorsports community while providing valuable career and support opportunities for veterans. We would like to thank CrowdStrike for all the beautiful work that they do behind the scenes in the Operation Motorsports world. And speaking of things that are beautiful, looking at Anthony Calvi sawing the wheel of his number 24 wide Motorsports Mercedes heading around Sunset Bend of turn number 17. The fact these drivers are wheeling these cars around the racetrack with as much ferocity as they are has been fantastic to follow thus far.
Yeah, absolutely has. As we see Tyler Manning, like he had a little slip there coming through. So he's got the car riding back around. I think he was looking at the practices, and turn 7, the hairpin is going to be a bit of a handful for a lot of these cars. Just trying to get the car slowed up there from the maximum speed all the way down to about 50 or so miles an hour to make that corner. So I saw lots and lots of cars having issues there. So hopefully we'll get all those sorted out. But I do see that we have a guest popped in to do a little conversation with us towards the end of qualifying here.
Oh, yes, I think we do. That being series admin, I believe, Tyler Reed. So, Charles, would like to have a chat with the series admin and kind of talk about this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's bring Tyler in here. Tyler, welcome in here at the end of qualifying. We've already been talking about how much we've enjoyed broadcasting this season. It's been just a blast. And I see you threw a little wrinkle in there for us here for the last race, bringing in the rain, of course, at Sebring, where it should be.
Yeah, you got to have a little rain at Sebring, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I was down there a couple of years ago, and it absolutely it came down for a good 3 hours. So wanted to bring you in just for a minute and talk about, the season overall, and then talk about the Giving Tuesday auction, which will be coming up soon. So we'll let you go ahead and just have it there for a few minutes.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate it. And thank you, Charles, for the introduction there. Yeah, so season 9, it's been quite a blast. We've been doing this since right around the start of COVID, and it kind of took off. That was several years ago when I first joined up. Now we're in season season 9 and prepping for season 10. To start early February. So it's been pretty crazy. We've had some wild interactions on the track. We try to mix it up and keep it interesting. Sometimes the mixed class can get a little exciting. That's for sure. But yeah, it's been enjoyable. I've loved it. I think the guys are having fun, and that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. But yeah, Giving Tuesday. Thank you for bringing that up. As you guys have informed all the viewers, Advanced Sim Racing's, a participant in the Giving Tuesday event. They've donated in previous years. They got some cool stuff for us coming into this year, which we're excited about. And it's just a good auction that you can get into and look at some pretty cool racing gear. We've got all kinds of motorsport related items along with some non-motorsport items, and it's just to raise funds for Operation Motorsports and the program that they're going to support moving on into 2025. So that Giving Tuesday is December 2nd. So if you want to check it out, please head over to operationmotorsport.org and learn more about that event, as well as some of the other events that we have going on. Leading up to the end of the racing season here, and some of our other events. We have the Honoring Heroes campaign. That's for the Roar event that happens every year, and that's where you can honor your military or veteran hero, by putting their name on the hood of the cars that are going to be at ROR. So that's another way that you can help the organization donate. It's just $22. You get your hero's name on the hood of the car, and you can also go over to our website, operationmotorsport.org, and learn more about that. If you want to help the organization out and recognize a hero of your own for the race on November 11th. So some pretty cool things going on, and we're just staying busy.
There you go. And that's the whole point, right? Is keeping these guys busy and immersed in racing, whether it's on the sim or in real life. And I know the Race of Remembrance is it at Anglesey again this time?
I believe that is correct. I believe it's in it's over in Anglesey Circuit over in Wales.
Anglesey, yeah. I thought it was. I knew it was last year, and I couldn't remember if it was this year, if I saw anything on it or not. But yeah, it looks like a fantastic venue for a racetrack. It's right on the Welsh coast, just gorgeous. And so I knew you guys, always have a good time there, and some good racing goes on as well. So, Tyler, we're going to let you go, and we're going to close up qualifying here. Thanks for stopping in, and then we'll get this race going, and we'll make sure we keep that website out there so that way people can go out and take a look.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Charles.
All right. Thank you, sir.
And that right there was Tyler Reed, the series admin. Always nice to have a chat with him and kind of talk about all the stuff going on in the world of Operation Motorsports. I'll tell you what, browsing through the operationmotorsports.org website, I noticed that tomorrow, I believe, there's going to be a Operation Motorsports charity golf event held, and that's going to be out there in California. I think there's two reasons why I'm not going to be there. One, it's in California. I'm from the city of Philadelphia, and plus, I think no one would trust me at a golf course. I would probably end up whacking a ball into someone's face, and I'd probably get punched in the face as a result of that. But nevertheless, this qualifying session has now been brought to a close, and the heavy hitters, as per usual, Corby and Ian Carney on the pole in both of the GT3 classes. Looking pretty spread out, though, it must be said, Charles, between those GT3 classes. Carney at a 2-minute 15.137. Meanwhile, Corby in that Mustang at a 2:12.0.
Yeah, definitely. All Schuring, McLuhan are all in the 212s. So all looks like he's going to wrap up the poll again. So that'll be 8 out of 8 for this season. So congrats to him. Then Carney is going to take the poll for the Ben GT3s, I believe. But it's much tighter down. No, I'll take that back. It's actually a lot wider. It's over a second between him and Hicks. So yeah, it looks like there's some people that are struggling, which is what you kind of expect when you go to a track with rain. It takes lots and lots of time and practice to get good at any track, and then you just amplify that by making a wet track and running rain tires.
There was going to be so much that's just going to be thrown these drivers' ways between the start and the end of this race. It's going to be entertaining, though, to say the very least. We've got one more 45-minute race to look forward to. We're going to get that starting grid load up for you in just a couple of moments' time. Going to be noticing a very shuffled up grid for darn sure, and I'm sure that grid is going to be exceptionally shuffled up between now and the end of this 45-minute long race. Martin Wallace in the 666 ZFG racing car is going to grab the pole position at a 154.219, so that's a pretty good lap time from him. About a tenth and a half between himself and the Pro Ben pole sitter, that being Tyler Gilmette in the 5 car. Another Pro Ben driver in the form of Gregory Meismer going to be starting in 3rd. Skylar Vickroy going to be starting in 4th. Connor Parise and Hunter Reeve going to round out your 6 car LMP2 field. And looking through the rest of the top 10 starters, we got Corby, the highest qualifying GT3 driver, getting the clean sweep done of qualifying performances here. He's going to be starting this race in 7th. Starting this race in P8 is going to be Ty Schuring. And then looking at the end of the top 10, we have Jean McLuhan and Tyler Manning.
Yep, starting in P11, we got Jacob Little. On the outside of row 6, we have Matt Ayat, Gene Kelly in 13th, Ian Carney, the highest ranking GT3 Ben, starting 14th, Anthony Calvi in 15th, John Hicks in 16th, Billy Ohl in 17th, Tanner Masters in 18th, Rui Pereira in 19th, Richard Davenport rounds out your top 20, and then to close out the grid, Jake Porter, Tyler Reed, 21st and 22nd, Nolan Uke in 23rd, Elliott Whitfield in 24th, Dave Bell in 25th, Kyle Schutz in 26th, and I'm not even sure if that's close to being right, and Charles St. Pierre 27th, and neither one of those guys did a qualifying lap, and I'm not sure if they're even in the sim at this point.
Ooh, that is a very good question. That Hey, there we go. Alrighty, we apologize for those brief little technical issues there, folks. But as I was going to say before the world of technology decided to bite the hind end of our producer Josh, I was going to mention one of the other fantastic partners that we heard a little bit about in reference to the Giving Tuesdays auction, that being Advanced Sim Racing. Because on top of the valued support of CrowdStrike, Advanced Sim Racing is committed to supporting Operation Motorsports through generous contributions to their fundraising efforts and programs. In 2023, ASR donated a high-quality sim rig to Operation Motorsports Giving Tuesdays online auction, helping to raise funds for their impactful initiatives building on this commitment, ASR is pleased to contribute 2 additional sim rigs for this upcoming 2024 Giving Tuesday auction, further supporting Operation Motorsport's mission to provide veterans with exciting opportunities in the world of motorsports. Furthermore, Advanced Sim Racing has donated gift cards as prizes to the eMotorsports League, enhancing the competitive experience and rewarding participants. Contributions which reflect ASR's commitment to fostering engagement and growth within the eMotorsports community while supporting the valuable work of Operation Motorsports. We would like to thank Advanced Sim Racing, CrowdStrike, and Operation Motorsports for all the wonderful work making these broadcasts, this series, and all the wonderful stuff going on behind the scenes possible. But Charles, the lights are on, the lights are out on the pace car. We're about to get this race underway under damp conditions. What do you think is the big thing that we need to keep our eyes on heading into this final 45-minute long race of the season?
So obviously the rain is a big factor. Watch out for puddling on the track. Make sure that your braking is extended. So you want to take it nice and easy. It takes the tires a little longer to warm up when you got a wet track. So it's going to be very careful and give yourself time to get into a groove and not get impatient early. And it should end up being a good race for you.
Patience, that is going to be the big thing. Drivers going to have to play the waiting game, but they want to push it as well, especially at the beginning of this race. Ready to get things underway from the final race of the season. The green flag's down, the drivers are on their way. It's a disorganized start. 3 wide already for the drivers at the front of the field, nearly make that 4 wide. Heading down into turn number 1, look at the full commitment from Gregory Meismer. He's going to be able to take the lead. Heading off into turn number 1, Skylar Vicker going to slot in right behind Tyler Gilmet in P3. Looking though, drivers trying to go for a move down the inside, heading off into turn number 3. Meanwhile, looking at the GT3 field, their race is underway. Corby on the number 3 car, hoping not to have as much of a chaotic start as the LMP2 runners had a little bit farther up the road, but they make it through the first few corners clean. But that starts in LMP2 was pure pandemonium. It was a small little jump, it was a small little miscommunication, but Gregory Meismer making hay while the sun is shining to take the lead overall.
Yeah, he just went very aggressive to start. I thought they were going to try and go 6 wide down the front straight. That's what they were lining up to do, but they just managed to get 4 and managed to get it down to single file by the time they got through turn 1 and into 2 as the track kind of funnels down into a much tighter turn for 2 and 3. So far so good. Everybody looks like they got out clean. Didn't see any real issues with anybody. The GT3s are obviously a little more hesitant with the fact that they just don't have the downforce that the LMP2s do. So they took their time, took it easy, and got a good start out of everybody.
The one driver that certainly got thunked from the falling anvil at the very beginning of this race is Martin Wallace. He's lost out on a whole lot of time, still running P2 in the Pro LMP2 category. However, as a result of that drama at the very beginning, he has lost out on about 3 spots overall. Not ideal for him in the slightest. Tyler Gilmet running P2 at the moment, P2 of the Pro Ben Racers, and P2 overall just got moved on Skylar Vickroy in the not-too-distant future to slip his way up into 2nd overall. Looking at Gilmet at this point in time, Meismer well farther up the road, about 9/10 of a second, so Gregory Meismer trying to pull a lead and go even on Tyler Gilmet for victories throughout the season, as Vickroy having some rally action coming at turn number 1. That's not a detour you want to take in the dry, let alone in the wet. Skylar Vickroy may have gone away with one right there.
Yeah, absolutely. As we're seeing, you can see the spray makes it very difficult to see everything in front of you. It just took it down, maybe just a little too hard. Yeah, just maybe a little understeer from some dirty air in front of those LMP2s that were in front of him, and just made it a little difficult to get through the corner, but obviously made it safely, even though he had to take a little run through the dirt.
About as much understeer as a derailed train. That was brutal understeer that Skylar Vickroy just had to deal with heading through turn number 1. That's usually a section where snap-on oversteer can come back to bite you, dealing with the bumps. However, that was a big amount of understeer for him to deal with and lost him a spot overall, I believe. Actually, I do believe he's been able to recover quite well from that, so I don't even believe he's lost out on a spot overall. Just a teeny tiny bit of time. Taking a look at a replay of an incident involving Nolan Uke in the number 12 car. Oh, you can see a spinner that was coming out of the hairpin of turn number 7 at the very beginning of this race, and a little bit of BMW on BMW contact coming out of the corner, so not really sure what happened there to send that Ferrari around. Trying to figure out exactly who that was. May have been Roy Pereira in the number 81 car that may have gone for a spin coming out of that 7th corner at the very beginning of this race. But some evasive action being taken, more like a choose code that you'd see in a NASCAR race and an on-track obstruction.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And yeah, Pereira just went around as he's about 10 seconds back. But then you saw the contact where they, the two BMWs took differing lines. And you look like you just tried to straight line that little set of S's there coming out of 7. And whoever the other car was, it might have been Dave Bell. He's back there in that area as well. So that might have been the person who caused the contact, tried to run the racing line, which it is what it is. It's racing. I don't think there's any fault with either one of those two. So they'll continue on. Uke will have a little bit of aero damage, but he's driving the BMW, which is basically a brick anyway. So I don't think the aero is going to affect him too much.
Yeah, I think in conditions like this, if we were running in the dry, small little bit of aerodynamic damage in these race cars could probably be a big detriment, but here in the rain, I mean, we've seen some drivers in the past in dry conditions this season do pretty well, even though they were missing a front bumper, so I don't think that's going to hurt them too much. Looking, though, Gregory Meismer may be feeling the burn from Tyler Gilmette right behind, and running wide, heading through Tower Bend of turn number 13. This may be the opportunity that Gilmette needs to take the lead in this race. That's not just in the Pro Bend category, that is the lead overall. Gilmette running into the paint, heading around turn number 14. That was near disaster for him, but he can see these two drivers trying to find different lines. Usually in wet weather racing, you want to run as far away from that racing line as you possibly can, but with these damp conditions, you can see the drivers kind of risking a little bit more, running on the racing line with very few alterations, and even running all the way out into the paint on the outskirts of Le Mans. That's turn number 16, going onto the Ullman straightaway at the end of this lap. I'm really surprised that they're using as much of the curb on exit as they are, because that could be in a world of hurt, as Gilmette getting really flirtatious with that barrier coming out the final corner.
Yeah, and you're right. They're actually on the dry racing line, which most people will tell you that's probably not the place you want to be. You want to be off the racing line where there's less rubber built up, because the rubber just gets slicker and slicker as the rain comes down. But these guys are doing a really good job, and you've got the two Bend cars running 1 and 2, and Gilmette is giving everything he can just to try and keep up with Meismer.
At this point, all these drivers pushing their cars to the absolute limit of control, and you can kind of see that just in terms of lap times that they have set. Just looking through for their best laps, Skylar Vickroy at a 155.747, Reeve at a 155.9, Wallace at a 155.767, only that'd be 0.02 of a second between Vickroy and Wallace for their best laps of the race. Connor Priest a little bit slower in that pack, but then you got Gregory Meismer and Tyler Gilmette pretty much covered by no time at all in terms of their best laps of the race. So at this point in time in that LMP2 field, the whole pack is just it's like they're vacuum sealed together more than anything else.
Yeah, it really is. They are, I'm looking at the best laps for each driver, and they're really, really tight. Paris is a little bit off, which is shocking because he's had some pretty dominant races this season. So to see him kind of down is a bit of a shock to me. But the LMP2 class, both the Pro and the Ben, have been just really, really tight for the entire season. So it doesn't necessarily shock me that as we see, that was the 54 car Carney just kind of caught the curb and went sideways in his Porsche. But managed to catch the tail of the car and coming on through. So yeah, it's been a really good battle up in the LMP2 all season long.
And the LMP2 fight is still going to be hot in the final race of this season. Taking a look at a fight possibly brewing between Martin Wallace in the 666 and Hunter Reeve right in front. Both these drivers have been very fast throughout this season. Gotta say, Martin Wallace, I don't believe has snagged a victory thus far this season. He's been pretty fast, though, and of course grabbed the pole for this race. However, with a somewhat disastrous start, hasn't really gone his way thus far. But hey, there's still a whole lot of time left in this race to get his nose back to that grindstone and start to push it, maybe even back that car into victory lane for the last race of this season. But looking in the LMP2 field, just a whole lot of heavy hitters. You got Connor Parise, who's honestly showing not a lot of pace, I gotta be completely honest, for Parise. He has 3 victories thus far this season, his third coming 1 week ago at Sonoma. However, not showing too much pace at all in the early stages of this race, as we see a BMW going off the track. That, I believe, may be Dave Bell coming through Tower Bend of turn number 13, which is such a tricky corner to try and get right, especially in these adverse conditions.
Yeah, you were talking about this being an old Air Force base, World War II, I will say Army Air Corps base, because I think that's what it was originally. That concrete that's in Tower is the original concrete from when this was actually a working runway. So it's never been replaced. That is still the original tarmac from the runway in the 40s. So it looks like it's not taken well to the water, as we see it's like the LMP2s are starting to work their way through the back of the GT3 field.
Ooh, and I think I just caught in the corner of my eye a GT3 car getting very flirtatious with that outside tire barrier. May have possibly been Roy Pereira, who we saw get very close to that barrier, heading through Bend. Oh my God, look at that! Bumper cars in the LMP2s. Gregory Meismer getting bounced around like a rubber ball coming out of turn number 1. There's some GT3s involved. That's an Audi going off the track. Who's that's going off the circuit and hit the barriers? Trying to figure out that maybe no, here's Ayot in the number 2 car. It's Jake Porter in the TFG Racing number 49 car. He's gone off the circuit. A big mistake from the Canadian, heading down into turn number 3. That was a whole lot of stuff going on and barely any time at all, to the point where I called Sunset Bend the Bend, because I just could not formulate words with the drama that I was seeing before my very eyes. Couldn't even process it myself, but the drama is still continuing, and with all of that coming out of turn number 1, it's really brought Skylar Vickeroy into this fight, side by side with Meismer and Guillemette for the lead overall, the lead in the Pro Bend category. Guillemette on the inside, mega sideways, making contact with Guillemette, and look at that, trying to apply a little bit of pressure. Skylar Vickeroy, Guillemette having to do a defensive maneuver, nearly running Vickeroy off into the dirt, coming around turn number 11, 12, and 13. This is a brutal, brutal way for this race to form for these drivers, dealing with the GT traffic. Charles, you mentioned it beautifully at the top of this broadcast about how traffic was going to be such a pain in the ass for these drivers. Not really the most professional terminology, but that's really the only way I can describe it. It's a thorn in the side for these drivers.
It really is, and you can just see that every pass is a challenge. It doesn't matter where you're on the track. As we see, with another dive in there into Sunset, as John Hicks wisely stays wide, coming through there to allow those LMP2s to get through, and that looked like that was 4 of them. But yeah, you saw Meismer and Guillemette. Guillemette is doing everything he can to try and get by Meismer, and Meismer is fighting him tooth and nail. And I think it's going to be like this for the rest of the race. And what we haven't mentioned yet, and I was thinking about this earlier, is these cars, even though they're battling hard, they're not using, as we see them still side by side, Meismer still on there, and it's still side by side going through 5 and 6, all the way down the straightaway, coming down into turn 7. Oh, no, contact again.
Oh my God, this is going to end in tears at some point. They're still side by side, hang down into the hairpin at turn number 7. Look at that, Meismer on the outside trying to hang on. The driver of the number 75 car was sending a whole lot of pressure from Guillemette in the 5. Guillemette, he is not giving up though. He is trying to go for the move at any single opportunity. Nearly coming to blows, heading through Fangio of turn number 9. Looks like Guillemette going to have to concede at the moment. However, still nearly going to be side by side coming through Collier Bend of turn number 11. These drivers have not given us an opportunity to catch our breath. Oh no, they're going to come to blows. Heading through turn number 13, Meismer making contact with a Porsche GT3 car. Not sure who that was. May have been, yeah, it is Ian Carney, the driver of the number 54 car, getting caught out in LMP2 madness. Carney, the driver with 5 victories on the board thus far this season. It looks like it's not going to turn into number 6, though, as there is some mighty damage on that race car. And in all that drama, Tyler Gilmet now having to withstand the pressure from Skylar Vickroy behind. This race has been just a bag of chips and then some. It has been fantastic.
Yeah, Carney definitely had damage to the suspension of the right rear of that car. He was struggling just to keep the car straight. As we saw, it was a battle between Gilmet and Meismer for almost an entire lap, where they were just side by side. Gilmet was looking every direction he could to try and make a pass, and finally he made the move where there was no place for Meismer to go. Not attributing fault to anybody, but that's how it was as they were going through Tower Corner, seemingly 3 wide, and you can barely get through there by yourself most times.
I am genuinely at a loss for words. This race has been so fantastic thus far. My voice is on the verge of giving out. Oh my lord, gonna take a look at this from Ian Carney's perspective. The number 54 full-wide Motorsports Porsche just getting caught out there. That was, if I'm being completely honest, just from the first look, Charles, that just looked like a move. I'm not even sure if I can call it a move out of pure desperation from Gregory Meismer. I'm not even sure if he wanted to go for that move. I think he just outcooked it, overcooked himself, outbroke himself, heading down into turn 13 at ends in tears for himself and Carney.
Yeah, I think that was, if I was going to have to lay blame, it probably is. He just came in there really hot, and there was just no place for him to move. That was overly optimistic by Meismer. And to be fair, he took the brunt of the damage. Well, I say that he took the most time loss out of the group. Now that Carney will have to come in early and get his pit stop and get that done and get his fast repair. But yeah, that was just too late, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was a recipe for disaster heading down into turn number 13. That section is so tricky, single-filed, let alone side-by-side, but that is going to pretty much give that Pro Ben championship to Gilmet unless Meismer has anything to say about it. Still got a whole lot of time left to go in this race. We only got about 15 and a half minutes on the board of this 45-minute long race. We've already seen a whole lot of drama and more drama going on. Calvi running into the back of a Porsche right in front of him. That was heading down into turn 15, so Calvi going to have a moment trying to get spun around in the right direction, laying a little bit of smoke on the outskirts of that corner. Calvi, I could just tell that he was overcooking it off into that corner. Even though this track is at the point as we see Meismer come down pit lane, likely to repair some damage that he picked up in that glorified round of bowling heading down into Tower Bend a couple of laps ago. But at this point, Charles, with the track conditions the way they are, heading through the corners is not the tough spot. Just from my perspective in the broadcast, with actually maybe a drive-through for Gregory Meismer. It looks like it is going to be a drive-through for him. But getting back to the point I am trying to mention here, my ADHD brain getting the better of me a couple of moments ago there. I think at this point in time, Charles, it's not heading through the corners that's the real tough spot. I think it's just heading through the braking zone. That seems to be what's catching out these drivers more than anything else.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And obviously this is the last race of the season, so if you're in any kind of battle for a points position, it just makes it that much more, gives you more of a incentive, I guess, to to try and push the envelope a little bit. But with these cars, you just really can't do that in the wet. You see Calvi going wide there. You just really can't. And it's just, you have to just take your time. And once again, it talks about being patient early, right as the race started. And we've seen a distinct lack of that for some of these guys during the course of the race. As we see Calvi going around, and we see Meismer going around again. I think he's got damage to that car. I think he had to just come in and take his drive through, and now he's he's struggling a little bit with the car, with just, as you can see, the nose is kind of damaged pretty bad. See if there's anything else that might have popped up here. Oh yeah, he's definitely struggling there. Just trying to get the car slowed down, get it stopped. Looked like he caught a little bit of grass there where he maybe understeered due to that air damage that's on the front of the car. So he's going to have to come back in and pit and get the car repaired and try and get back out. But, I think with the second pit stop, it's going to be very difficult for him to make up enough time to challenge Guillemette unless something happens. We still have another, 27 minutes left in the race. So, you never can tell because it is a race and there are still people out there trying to hold their spots. So, Guillemette's not necessarily out of the woods yet. Things happen during the course of the race. I'm not saying anybody would intentionally wreck him, but I'm saying that, people are still racing and they're not going to give up the line as easy as you might think they would.
I mean, with the amount of twists and turns that we've had thus far in this race, let alone throughout the rest of the season, I would certainly not rule out Gregory Meismer maybe being in contention for that Pro Ben victory. Gotta say, though, he's now come down into the pits probably to repair the damage on that race car, because that car is looking like an absolute hoop-de-rod a couple of moments ago. There's Meismer stopped in his pit stall. The driver who had a brilliant start to this race and was driving fantastically. If he didn't have that mistake, I think he probably would have lost out on the lead just through sheer willpower of Tyler Guillemette alone. But it still would have been a very good drive for him. But sadly, with that damage, it's completely ruined the way that he was probably thinking that his race would go. Looking at the front, though, this is Skylar Vickroy, who's running in P2 overall. Well farther up the road is Tyler Guillemette, the leader in Pro Ben and the leader overall. But right behind Vickroy is Martin Wallace, the driver that started this race from the pole in the 666 car. He's probably running with a little bit of added vinegar in his veins because he was very upset with how things went at the start. Lost about 3 or 4 positions from the get-go here. So it looks like Wallace may try and find some solace in getting a move done on Skylar Vickroy in the not-too-distant future. You can see the spray gun kicked off from Skylar Vickroy's car, heading down into turn number 1. Looks like Wallace not close enough to get that move done. It may be a battle for P2 overall, but it's still a battle for the win in Pro LMP2. And it looks like they got some GT3 traffic right in front that's going to throw another wrench in the works.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was before we had all the drama earlier, I was going to mention that these cars are running really hard, but they're not running dry pace. So they're actually doing quite a bit of fuel saving just naturally because they can't run flat out. This might be a race where you see somebody go for a no pit stop and just try and run it the rest of the, what you get to lose at this point, right? And so, I don't know, if they've changed their fuel for the race or not, but if they're running the same amount of fuel where they were running into the, close to the 40-minute mark, it is definitely possible they could run this race without a stop.
And speaking of a stop, here's John Hicks in the 308 Savage 7 McLaren. He's running third at the moment in the Ben GT3 class, which I gotta say would be a fantastic race for Yuke. He's in the lead at the moment in Ben GT3. I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken here, Charles, that Yuke is making his series debut. Of course, Carney kind of got struck by a falling anvil with the incident involving Gregory Meismer heading down into turn number 13, where he was just an innocent victim and all of that. But Yuke, this would be a fantastic race for him, even if it isn't his series debut. That would still be a pretty good result for him. Has yet to grab a victory thus far this season. I don't even believe he's raced thus far this season, but either way, the driver of the BMW looking to do well here if he can hang on.
Yeah, so he did race last week and had a really good qualifying run in our race last week, and then kind of struggled a little bit during the race. But it seems like, he kind of struggled a little bit in qualifying today, started in the back, but he's up 10 positions already in the race and is having a fantastic run. So the issues that he had last week kind of reversed themselves, and he's having a really good run, even though he's got a little bit of damage on the front of the car that we saw earlier with contact with Bell. But he's got that BMW up toward the front, as we see with Josh throwing up the graphic for the tire selection. Obviously, everybody on wets which is smart. There's a chance that the LMP2s probably, if there was going to be a break in the rain, might have been able to go on a dry set. But with the fact that it's just raining the entire race, it's just better to have the wet zone. We see more interaction with GT3s and LMP2s. That was the 11 car of Connor Paris trying to get by Rui Pereira in the Ferrari. So I think they all got through cleanly, but it definitely looked like they were fighting for the same part of the track.
And speaking of fighting for position out there on the racetrack, I'm curious, considering the conditions that we have, the track is still damp, do not get me wrong, but something that I'm shocked we haven't really seen too much of thus far in this race is drivers kind of searching going down the straightaways, looking to find some puddles to cool off those tires, because that can play a pretty big factor when it comes to wet races, especially in that period between transitioning from a fully wet racetrack to a fully dry one. We're basically locked in the midst of that transition period. iRacing is marking the track as very lightly wet, and with 25 race cars out there on the circuit at the moment, that's kind of going to cause the track to slowly but surely dry. But the rain is still going to be coming down, so that could be kind of working against it possibly. Either way, if the track conditions remain exactly the same between now and the end of this race coming up in a little over 20 minutes time, it's still like that transitional period between wet and dry where really it's too dry for wets, but at the same time it's too wet for dries. And just based off my experience, did a little bit of karting back in the day, I remember driving on a somewhat dry racetrack with wet tires and a somewhat wet racetrack with dry tires. Neither are a good experience, but just from my experience in the karting stuff, you'd much prefer to have the wets on, because the wets, a little bit of technical talk here, usually wet tires are a lot softer than the dries. So even though you may cook your tires to the point where you could probably fry an egg on them when everything is said and done, maybe that's the reason why they have the cutouts on the front bumpers in the LMP2 race cars, I still think the wet tires are definitely going to be the tire of choice between now and the end of this race. It's just way too treacherous out there for anyone to even consider slicks.
I'll even dumb that down. You'd rather have too much grip than not enough grip. I think that's really the thing with the wet tires on a dry track. You're going to have an overabundance of traction, and the reverse is true when it's a dry tire on a wet track. You're running around on slick tires on basically the top of a pond. It just doesn't work. So I think that iRacing has been doing some tweaks with their weather system since they've deployed it. I know you and I did a race here probably a season or two ago where the track, we basically called it Lake Sebring because of the amount of water that was on the track. And I think this is what they call their light rain configuration. So it's just going to rain. It's not going to get overly wet. You're not going to get a lot of ponding. You're not going to get a lot of puddles on the track. But it's going to stay wet, and so the wet tire is absolutely the correct choice.
I mean, it is Florida, so you do expect some pretty heavy rain, but pretty much the lightest rain that Florida has seen in an afternoon in quite some time. But nevertheless, looking at the drivers coming down pit lane, here's Dave Bell in the Bell Motorsports 313 BMW. He stopped in the box at the moment, came in fourth in the Ben GT3, now dropping down the running order a little bit. Gotta say, in all of that chaos and craziness, Ian Carney, despite being stopped in his pit stall for 49.1 seconds, still running sixth at the moment in Ben GT3, and he's got that pit stop out of the way, so we could end up seeing him sneak his way up into the podium spots. That would be a brilliant result for him. I mean, still 5 victories to come from the season, probably not going to get a sixth here today, but Ian Carney has been another fantastic driver to follow out throughout the season. He and this man Corby all have just been the forces to be reckoned with, and the not the 4 horsemen, the 2 horsemen in the GT3 world in this series.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Carney couldn't make up some spots. He was leading, I think, by 8 seconds. So he's obviously got really good pace in the car, and he's very comfortable on the wet track. And then Ole is just, he's just slowly stretching that gap out. It was 2 seconds for quite a while, and I think with the LMP2 traffic that came in, I think that's kind of stretched that gap out a little bit, or at least helped stretch it out a little bit. So Carney could come back and get a spot or two before the race is over, but as you said, you doing a great job as we see Uke and Davenport now coming in for their pit stop.
So the slow trickle of rain is coupled by the slow trickle of drivers coming down pit lane. Nolan Uke, there we see him in the number 12 car up on the jacks at the moment. Let's see how things shake out compared to him and everybody else. Looks like Davenport going to jump in front of him for the moment, but Davenport's a little bit farther up the road in terms of his pit stall. So there's Uke exiting at the moment. Davenport's still going to be stopped. There's Billy Ole. So related to Corby Ole, I'm not sure what the relation is there, whether it's two brothers, father and son, cousins with the same last name. Who knows? Either way, nice to see some family going on here on the racetrack, running the same combination that Corby Ole was running in the early stages. So nice to see another Ole back in the Mercedes. Here's Richard Davenport. He's going to be exiting out in a battle with himself and Hicks for P2 and P3 in the Ben GT3 category. Looks like Hicks in the 308 McLaren going to be able to jump in front for now, but look at Davenport trying to get that move done down the inside off into turn number 3. Rest to say that Hicks got away with one right there. Davenport trying to jump my blood pressure up a whole lot.
Yeah, absolutely. He managed to get through there. I thought it was interesting to see Ulk and McLuhan coming into the pits now for their stop. I'm assuming that maybe Gene Kelly and Matt Ayotte will be in this time as well. We'll wait and see. But I noticed that as you said, you called it out that Uke actually went up on the jacks. I think he may have been the only car that I can see that maybe stopped and took tires. Yeah, there may be a couple more. Maybe Dave Bell, Jake Porter may have taken tires as well. But a lot of the cars I think are just doing fuel-only stops. So that's a little bit of an interesting strategy call by Uke.
So some drivers deciding to go for some wacky off-the-wall strategies. We've seen it go on in the past, but I think with these rain races, that's usually the opportunity that the drivers take just to go for something completely out of left field. Coming back onto track, going over to the left-hand side, this is John McLuhan in that Porsche San Diego 911 Porsche. He is currently running second in Open GT3. However, he's got this man, Ty Shoring, in the number 46 car right behind. They're battling for the final podium positions in Open GT3 as it looks like Corby Ole going to pull away and try and get the season sweep from this season with a 5.8 second lead over himself and McLuhan. But that fight between McLuhan and Shoring, that's going to be intense.
It really is. And McLuhan actually did make up a little bit of gap. He was a little bit quicker on the pit stop. So he's actually closed the gap up a couple of seconds. And so we'll see if he can do something with that, see if he can make up some more ground as Ole is on the way to get his tires back warmed up. And I'm curious which tires Uke actually took. So I'm going to say he only took 2 because it was see his stoppage time was, if I pull up timing and scoring here, his stoppage time was 22.6, which is not a 4-tire stop because I think it takes 26 seconds to change all 4 tires on a GT3 car. So he took 2. So I don't know, because it's a BMW, if he took fronts or if he took left sides. Because one of those tires is going to be used a lot heavier than the others. So it might have been a left side change, or it might have been a front tire change. And if it's a front tire change, then you have to think about all the rest of the front engine cars, the Ford, the BMW, and the Mercedes, on how much they're chewing up those front tires during the course of this race.
Yeah, tire wear going to play a huge factor. I think this is probably the first time thus far this season that we've really had to bring up tire wear as a discussion for both the GT3 runners and the LMP2s. Speaking of the LMP2s making their round of pit stops, Tyler Gilmet out and away. Gotta say, Gregory Meismer has left the session, so it's going to be game, set, match for Tyler Gilmet in both the Pro Ben class for this race and really the entire season for that matter. Skylar Vickroy, you can see him trying to get a move done around the outside of, that was, I believe, Anthony Calvi heading through turn number 1 Vicroy running 4th at the moment in Pro LMP2. Been a pretty wild race to follow with him. He's already made that call to come down pit lane. Gilmet and Martin Wallace, the other LMP2 runners to make that run to come into the pits, they exit out in front of Vicroy. So it looks like Martin Wallace kind of pulling off an overcut on Skylar Vicroy, so well done to him. Now our attention is on the final LMP2 runners yet to make their run down into the pits, that only being Hunter Reeve and Connor Parise. There's only 2 LMP2s left to run down pit lane. Parise, I gotta say, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's a little bit surprising that he's this far off pace. I mean, I say that, still putting on a pretty good show. It's very tough in conditions like this to keep the car on the racetrack and just whittle away the laps slowly but surely. But Parise, a driver, scored the victory at Sonoma 1 week ago. Probably not going to do the same here for the last race of the season at Sebring. There we go, try saying that 5 times fast. As we see Hunter Reeve, the overall leader and the leader in Pro LMP2, as a result of us being in the midst of this pit cycle, finally come down pit lane, along with Parise a little bit farther in the back of shots.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the last 2 cars yet to pit. So they're going to come in, and that'll be the entire field. They'll get their stops done. We'll see where they cycle back out in relation to the cars, as we see Reese getting stopped and Reeve getting started. And he's off and away. And looks like he's going to get passed by Gilmet. And could not see Martin Wallace. And this is the second time we've seen that shot with Martin. I don't know if maybe he got there's an issue with him or not. It looks like he's still on the track. So interesting. We're not, there we are. There he is. He's there coming through 5 and 6, working his way down the straightaway to hit turn 7 to the hairpin. So he's still out there on the track running in P2 in the Pro LMP2 class.
And I think in a little bit of the confusion surrounding Martin Wallace briefly being abducted by a UFO hang through turn number 1, saw a bumper flying around Sunset Bend, so not sure if there was an incident there or if that was just a small little graphical error. An iRacing fan deciding to throw debris out there on the racetrack. You've seen it in NASCAR before, saw it in Formula 1 back during the 2005 US Grand Prix. Would be the first time we've ever seen it in the Operation eMotorsports Racing League, but nevertheless, taking a look at a replay of the number 17 Porsche being driven by Richard Davenport. We saw him involved in a battle not terribly long ago, sideways heading through the hairpin at turn number 7. Small little overslow from him, nothing major. Oh, there's Tyler Reed. You can see that Corvette of his absolutely destroyed. You can see Wallace having to take a little bit of evasive action to avoid that car. You know, our colleagues here at Apex Racing TV, that being Mr. Greg Ginsberg and Larry Lefty McLeod, usually run into a little bit of a curse on the Rickmatech side of things here on Apex Racing TV. Every single Monday night, where a driver that they have a chat with before the broadcast runs into some difficulties. It looks like Tyler Reed having that exact same issue, so maybe the broadcaster's curse jinxing the driver of the number 47 Corvette, as it looks like his bumper made out of silicone rubber in the back shot, bouncing its way down the racetrack.
Yeah, that was the bumper you had noticed in Sunset, as he basically, the car got loose coming through Sunset Bend. He overcorrected high side of the car and ended up planting his right front into that outside wall, and then so that's basically him having to tow and go back to the pits. And if he's used his fast repair already, that means he'll be sitting there for a while. So we're on board now with Matt Ayotte, who is running in P11 overall, P6 in the GT3 field, and is having a pretty decent race. He's up a position from his start, so keeping everything clean and just trying to get through this 45-minute contest.
I'm surprised that Ayotte was able to keep it out on the racetrack. We saw him try and get the move done on Gene Kelly not terribly long ago, heading off through turn number 14, I believe it was, the very fast section of Bishop towards the end of this lap. Big moment coming out of the corner. Not sure if he made wall contact there or not. My microphone, of course, blocking my view of my screen. God love it. But Gene Kelly running in 5th at the moment in Open GT3, withstanding a little bit of pressure from Ayotte in the Audi right behind these two, running effectively in no man's land. A little bit farther up the road. See what I did there is about 2.5 seconds farther up the road with Manning about 10 seconds in tow. The Open GT3 class a little bit spread out outside of the front three runners, as Ty Schuring running third is 7 seconds back of our leader Corby, compared to Little, who is 31 seconds back of all. I'm trying to do the quick math in my head. My school district of Philadelphia public school math skills not really doing me any favors here, trying to turn the gears in my head. It's a good thing I have a window open with how much thinking I'm doing during this broadcast. My room is starting to fill up with smoke, but nevertheless, I will try and do the math in my head. That would be 23 seconds, would it be, between Schuring and Little at this point for P3 and P4 in Open GT3?
That's close enough. That's close enough for government work.
There we go. My math skills occasionally can do me well. Not much else than that. Nevertheless, Schuring actually losing a little bit of time to the back of McLuhan, so I think those two starting to spread out a little bit, as this is really the only opportunity they get to see our leader, Corby, the driver of the number 3 car, been incredibly dominant all throughout this season. Just needs to bring it home, and it'll be a season sweep. Charles, you're more familiar with this series than I am. You've been a driver in this series in the past, so I'm curious, has there ever been anyone to pull off a season sweep in the Operation eMotorsports Racing League?
I'm going to say no. And I obviously don't have that knowledge. I'd have to go back and look at I'd have to go back to go back and look at all the season series. But the seasons I ran in, it was really competitive. So there wasn't a really an out and out top driver that was just, I take that back. There were a couple of really, really good drivers, but I think they still end up having issues during the season. Either missed a race or had an incident during the race, because I think for most of these seasons they've all been multi-class, either as not necessarily LMP2 GT3, but I think the full season I ran was GT3 GT4, and we had a couple of really good drivers up in the front of that group, but I still think that there were more than one. And so I don't think that there was a dominant driver like we've got this season. I'm sure somebody will pop in the chat and correct me, but if it's Adam Poppenhouse, I apologize.
Yeah, we'll get the get some statisticians here to give us that information before the end of this broadcast. Just a replay of a nice battle involving John McLuhan in the number 911. Porsche running second at the moment in Open GT3. Got a move done heading through the first few corners on the driver of the number 13 car, that being Tyler Manning. So that was a fight between two Porsches, two drivers running in the Open GT3 class. I believe that may have been a replay of something that was going on earlier. Got some battles up and down this grid, even though it has spread out a teeny tiny bit. Not a whole lot of time left on the clock, coming to 4 minutes now. Tyler Gilmet, the Pro Ben driver, looking to do something that no other driver has done thus far this season and grab the Pro Ben victory and the overall victory as a Pro Ben driver. That would be a brilliant way to cap off a brilliantly driven season for Gilmet. This will be his 5th victory on the season, regardless of what happens, considering that Gregory Meisber jumped out of the session as currently 8 laps down to this man of Gilmet. It's been a pretty up and down season, though. He kicked the season off in pretty convincing fashion with back-to-back victories at the season opener in Daytona and round number 2 at Road America. Then hit a little bit of a rough spell at CTMP Watkins Glen and Road Atlanta. He got beat to the checkered flag in Pro Ben by Gregory Meisber, but in the final 3 races he has turned on the Hyperjets. A little bit of an issue involving his competitor, but nevertheless was able to do well towards the end of this season.
Yeah, absolutely. He's having the last couple of races have just been fantastic, and even though Meismer had the incident tonight, it looked like Gilmet at least was going to challenge him for the win. Really put a lot of pressure on him, and might have played in Meismer's head a little bit there, that he had to get up on the horse and maybe make some moves that I'm sure he's probably kicking himself for now. It's like, you know what, I shouldn't have done that. That was probably not the smart thing to do, and just kind of learn from that and move on to the next one. But yeah, Gilmet, both guys have had a really great season. It's been a tremendous battle week in and week out for both. And it's fitting that it came down to the last race to decide the championship.
We took a look at a replay of that incident hang down into Tower Bend of turn number 13, the incident that changed the trajectory of this race for Tyler Gilmet. He was running P2 behind Meismer throughout a decent chunk of it, but it was that moment, that critical moment hang down into turn 13 with the first run through lap traffic that caused that. It was a tough break as well for Ian Carney in the Ben GT3 class because he got snubbed of what was probably going to be a pretty good result for him. Can't say whether or not it was going to be the victory in Ben GT3, but he was putting on a pretty good show. Even with that being said, Uke, who's currently in the lead in Ben GT3, 51 seconds in front of Davenport at P2, so that's probably the most dominant drive that we have seen all season long. But talking about that incident again involving Gilmet, I feel like there's try and come up with a Floridian saying to describe how close that was to him getting involved in that, because that was near disaster for him. He had to drop the anchors, lock up the brakes to avoid either running into Ian Carney or running into the spinning car of Gregory Meismer. When everything was said and done, it was the size of a grain of salt plucked off the salted rim of a margarita bought at a Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville down in Florida. That separated Gilmet from either winning this race or getting caught up in that incident earlier on. He ends up coming out smelling like a rose, though, and is only about a lap away from sealing the deal from this race here, the final race of the season at Sebring. I don't believe the white flag is in the air yet. I'm curious as to where Gilmet is out there on the racetrack. I think it may have been the Mobile One Bridge that was briefly obscuring my vision. My glasses prescription is actually up to date, funnily enough. It was the first time March of this year that I actually got my glasses prescription done in months, but nevertheless, I say months, it was years. But looking at the drivers running all throughout this grid, Tyler Manning looks like he is going to lose out on that fight with himself and Gene Kelly, as Iota actually dropping down behind Manning at this stage of the race. The white flag is in the air. Going to be running out the clock now at 45 minutes, so it's one more lap of racing action and probably only a few more corners left to go for Tyler Gilmet to do something that we haven't seen any driver do thus far, and that is grab the victory as a Pro Ben LMP2 racer. Look at Connor Parise trying to deal with some of the GT3 traffic towards the end of this race. He's running effectively in no man's land in the Pro LMP2 category, well farther back of Wallace in second and Vicroy running down in fourth. It looks like Hunter Reeve going to snag the victory in Pro LMP2 as long as he can keep it clean. Is actually very close to the back of Tyler Gilmet. If there are a few more laps in this race, I would start to consider a fight between these two. However, considering there's only one more corner left for Tyler Gilmet to try and handle, I think it's all set in stone. Got some traffic to deal with as well that could throw a wrench in the works, but if you're Tyler Gilmet, you're going to take it easy because it's a guaranteed win in Pro Ben LMP2. Got one more corner left to negotiate from not just this final race of the season, but the season as a whole. Tyler Gilmet going on to that start-finish straightaway, and the driver, the number 5 in Pro Ben, going to win it overall. David beats Goliath, and Gilmet grabs his 5th class victory from the season, grabbing the Pro Ben Championship in the process and finishing in front of the Pro LMP2 winner of Hunter Reeve, Martin Wallace, but on a very good recovery drive towards the end. It's a crash involving Connor Parise, and that was the 74 Mustang in the midst of that. That was Jacob Little. Both of those cars ending up in the barriers at the end of this race, not going to hurt Parise. He still ends up running at your podium in the Pro LMP2 class. Looking at Corby, though, I believe he may have already grabbed the checkered flag in this race, that or he's having to do one more lap, probably the last car to grab the white, but nevertheless, it's just been dominant for Corby. Looks like he's still up to racing speed, so the driver, the number 3 car, going to try and bring it home. Jean McClune in that 911 Porsche. Running second at the moment, Ty Schuring in third. Kobe though, has about a half a lap to seal the deal and grab the season sweep here from the Operation eMotorsports Racing League.
Yeah, absolutely. Great victory by Ole. Assuming, we only assume he's going to make the last lap here. I noticed that Nolan Uke is off the server, or not off the server, but has already kind of jumped out. So I don't know if he took the checkered flag or not. So that'll be something we'll have to kind of watch. Kind of So we're going to say that he's won the class.
I don't think he did, Charles. I'm taking a look at the entries tab in iRacing. He does not have a checkered flag next to his name, so I don't believe he made it. Is there some sort of connection issue? Did he dip out one lap early? Either way, looks like it's going to be heartbreak for Nolan Yuki, who's on track for a dominant victory in the beneficiary GT3 class to bring the season to a close.
Oh,
Looks like it's
no.
all come unraveled. It was a mistake and a big crash, ending up in the air, nearly rolling over, I think. The BMW ending up on its lid, I think, after that horrible collision. Heading down into turn 15, losing control, hit that curb a little bit, gets him a little bit sideways, and he takes a one-way trip into that barrier. Made out of the matter of white dwarf stars here at Sebring in the world of iRacing, but that is going to be a costly and crucial and heartbreaking mistake for him. He's not going to win it in the beneficiary category. Tanner Masters, I believe, is going to be victorious in that class when everything is said and done. I'm trying to figure out who exactly would be victorious in
Richard
that class.
Davenport.
Would it be Davenport? I think, yeah,
looks like
maybe
about
Davenport who
1.9
ends up
seconds.
winning it.
Yeah, so very close between Davenport and Masters, but looking at time in his score, it looks like he's got the victory by a little under 2 seconds. So congratulations to Richard Davenport for finishing the race. I mean, you know, it's that's sad about Uke. He had such a great race going, and it was just hooked one curb. Looked like he was coming through the Indianapolis-Le Mans section before you get an Ullman straight, and just like he just ended up catching the inside curb here, as we're going to see it get crossed over there. Oh yeah, and there we go, straight into the wall. Nothing could be done about that. It's terrible. And that is he was about, I'm going to say, about a quarter of a lap from winning the class.
That is just pure, unbridled, and unadulterated heartbreak at the end of this season. But hey, they say in the world of racing, to finish first you have to finish. We just saw that get put on full display a couple of moments ago, and that's what decides the Ben GT3 class. Corby ended up taking the checkered flag, the winner in Open GT3. There's Billy stopped on the outskirts of turn number 17, Sunset Bend, at the end of this lap. There's Gilmet in the 5, and Corby gonna try and do some burnouts and ends in tears. Corby, as much as he's been dominant thus far this season, hasn't really gotten those donuts down pat. I think if he shows the speed that he's done this season, though, he may get a lot more opportunities to do some donuts when everything is said and done. We're going to see as close as we can get to a smoke show when everything is said and done. May just be exhaust fumes, maybe some steam coming off of these tires. Still raining here at Sebring, but in the wet chaos that we were kind of expecting, but still were surprised that we got. It was a fantastic way to cap this season off. I think we'll run through the results where we move off into some interviews to cap off a fantastic season of racing action here from the Operation Motorsports iRacing League. Brilliant day here at Sebring. We are expecting some drama with the rain, and we certainly got it. Probably weren't expecting this, though. The Pro Ben driver of Tyler Gilmet wins it over Hunter Reeve, the Pro LMP2 victor, in second overall. Martin Wallace going to round out your overall podium in third. Connor Paris going to finish in fourth. Skylar Vickroy going to be the last of the finishers in the LMP2 cars. Tough for him as well, because he was putting together a pretty good race. However, things didn't really materialize in the second half. He ends up finishing 56 seconds back of our overall winner of Tyler Gilmet. Then looking into GT3s, Corby going to complete the season sweep. The driver of the number 3 car takes 8 victories on this season, finishing 6th overall and P1 in Open GT3. A fantastic season overall for the Eternal Racing GT3 racer. Jean McClune going to finish right behind in 7th. Ty Schuring going to round out your GT3 podium, 8th overall. That's Jacob Little in 9th, and Gene Kelly going to round out your overall top 10.
Yeah, starting in 11th, or finishing in 11th, I should say, is Tyler Manning. Matt Ayot finishing 12th. Billy Ohl in 13th. Tanner Masters in 14th. It does say Tanner Masters over Dave Bell and Richard Davenport finishing 3rd. in the LM or in the open or the bin class in GT3. So that's interesting. Nolan Uke finishing in 17th. John Hicks in 18th. Anthony Calvi 19th. Ian Carney in 20th. And then finishing off the grid, Jake Porter 21st. Rui Pereira in 22nd. Tyler Reed in 23rd. Gregory Meismer in 24th. Elliot Whitfield in 25th. Kyle Schutz and Charles St. Pierre did not take the start, so they'll finish 26th and 27th.
And those are the results from the final race of this season. Looks like we got some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area. And I'm going to call dibs real quick on our winner in the Pro Ben LMP2 category. The winner overall, that being Tyler Gilmet, who's now joining us in the commentary booth. And now, Tyler, from our perspective in the commentary booth, we're expecting some fireworks here at Sebring. From your perspective behind the wheel, though, that race must have been absolutely hectic and a little bit terrifying at times.
That's a great way to put it. I would consider this race to have gone like the Daytona fireworks at the 24-hour. Because that battling with me and Greg in the beginning, just banging doors, it was awesome, it was tight, and it was scary.
Oh, certainly very scary. Just looking at that from our perspective, I think I may have actually tweaked my left arm in all of that chaos. Not sure how I was able to do that commentating over a race, but just looking at that, it was incredibly hectic. And that incident with Meismer and Ian Carney heading down into Tower Bend, we saw your perspective in all of that, dropping the anchors. And as I described it a couple of minutes ago, it was the size of a grain of salt taken off the salted rim of a margarita purchased at Floridian Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville that separated you from getting involved in that incident and being taken out of this race as a result of it. Talk us through what was going through your mind at that point in time.
Nothing. I hit brakes. I saw Greg lock up and run into Ian, and I just delayed my turn in, and I guess it was enough because I got like just a minor amount of contact, but was able to continue through. Unfortunately, Greg, it looks like took some damage and couldn't finish, which is unfortunate because I would have liked to see that battle go 45 minutes.
Oh, that battling towards the beginning of this race was absolutely insane, dealing with some adverse conditions here at Sebring. But it's a fantastic season for you, taking your fifth victory in Pro Ben, your first victory overall from this season. Now that we're at the end of it, I want to give you the opportunity just to talk about how this season was for you.
It was, honestly, it was a great season. We had some, I think everybody had some up and down moments, but the battling was intense all across the board. I think you guys got a good show. Everybody watching got a good show. And, yeah, I really enjoyed it from my seat.
And from my seat in the commentary booth, this season was absolutely brilliant to follow from start to finish. Starting all the way back in August, finishing here tonight, but the racing action was absolutely phenomenal. One final time from this season, Tyler, I'll let you have the floor to give any thanks or shout-outs at the end of this broadcast.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming on and broadcasting the season. Thank you to Operation Motorsport for putting this on, for taking care of our veterans, and just thank all the supporters out there that make it happen for us. We really appreciate it, and it makes a huge difference.
And thank you as well, Tyler, for bringing the rock and roll at the beginning of this race. That battle was insane to follow. Congratulations on the Pro Ben victory. Congratulations on the overall victory as well. Always excited to have a chat with you at the end of these broadcasts, and excited to see you wherever it is in the not-too-distant future, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Have a good night.
And that right there was Tyler Gilmet, the overall victor when everything is said and done here at Sebring. And now, Charles, who would you like to have a chat with?
Well, I'm going to pick the easy one. I'm going to pick our Ben GT3 champion for this season, Ian Carney. And we'll talk with him. And so congratulations on the season. I think that I'm going to say I think that you've wrapped up the Ben championship for the season. Is that correct?
From what I've been told, I clinched last week.
Okay, perfect. Okay,
luckily because, whew.
So you had a at least a rearview mirror full of the battle that we had between are Ben LMP2 drivers of Tyler Gilmette and Greg Meismer, and it ended up actually costing you a chance to get another win because it was like you got some right rear damage and had to take it into the pits and get it repaired.
Yeah, and then, well, I think what happened, just to start from the beginning there, is Greg apparently locked up and he just wasn't meaning to shoot the gap and did anyway. And, you know, it's just the way it goes. It's no hard feelings or anything, of course. We all make mistakes. And so I tried to pull it into the pits as easy as possible and couldn't even manage that because I hit the pit entry narrow entrance. Spun the car out in the pits, got a speeding, had a 40-second penalty, and then I had to pit again because I was 2 laps short on my pit window. So it was just not a great race. I mean, rainy Florida. I feel like a hurricane just blew through this place theoretically a few days before, and a hurricane blew through my race as well. So I don't know. I'm glad I clinched it last week because I guess I choked pretty hard.
Yeah, we're just now catching the replay of your pit entry there after the incident, and you kind of clobbered the wall pretty well.
I was checking my auto fuel. I was trying to turn my auto fuel off because I just wanted the quick repair and go, but then that happened and I had a 40 seconds, so I ended up fueling.
Wow. All right, so talk about the season overall, and what do you think your expectations are going to be for next season?
Well, this season has been a blast. All new people, other than a few that are on my team, and Richard, who introduced me. Everybody's fantastic. Nobody's ever had anything negative to say. I'm super pleased with you guys as commentators. I've watched the race back every week. Everything's been fantastic. The organization. You know, I wouldn't be able to tell it other than the graphics on my screen, apart from real life. And I've had as much fun as I think I might in a real car as well. And hopefully, come spring, I can join back into this league and pick it up where I left off. Hopefully, with some more wins. Hopefully, we can have more competition as well, so I can maybe. You know, not to toot my own horn, but win them all, hopefully.
Yeah, that's the goal. I think every racer goes into that with that goal at the start of the season. Nothing wrong with that.
I try to win them all, but I want somebody to battle with me. I want some bumper to bumper action here. That's where I find my fun at.
There you go. All right, so we'll let you, Ian. We'll let you give your thank yous, and then we'll let you go about your business.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you guys up there in the booth all season long supporting us, making this a fun event, and Opmo for putting this all on, and Tyler Reed and the whole gang at Opmo setting this all up, and you know, just man, I don't know. My summer, I broke my ankle at the beginning of the summer. I'm recovered now, but man, this really brightened up my summer because I wasn't really able to do anything else. So I'm glad that this all came about.
Excellent. Well, Ian, congratulations on your championship, and we'll see you for next season.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
And that right there was Ian Carney, who despite having a not too great end to this season, still ends up winning the championship in the Ben GT3 category. And I think we'll have a quick little chat before we wrap things up. It was Tanner Masters that ended up winning in Ben GT3, we believe. So we'll drag him into the commentary booth. Have a quick little chat. And Tanner, with a little bit of confusion from our end towards the end of this broadcast, we believe you are the winner in Ben GT3. Probably weren't expecting that to happen, considering the gap that I believe it was Yuke that he had pulled throughout this race. But still, you end up with the victory here at Sebring. Talk us through it.
Yeah, so like you said, very surprising. We were actually just talking about it in the waiting area. Honestly, I feel like I kind of stole that from Richie. Pretty hard. I sent it up into turn one. I got a little saucy, a little racy, and I think the both of us just kind of ended up on the same line, right? And we spun, and unfortunately, I think that's what kind of gave him his drive through, and so I feel kind of crummy about that. But the race itself, all that aside, the race was interesting. It was So we were talking about the Sebring's the final boss of tracks, and then they threw rain on top. It was definitely a very Dark Souls-esque kind of season finale, if you will. So, but it was a good time.
It seemed like a pretty good time for you all throughout this season. Your second victory in the Ben GT3 class, the other coming all the way back at CTMP in the early stages of this season. It was still a pretty good season, must be said, from you, and 2 victories on the season. Just talk us through it from your perspective.
Yeah. So the 2 victories are obviously the highlight of this for me, right? From a racing standpoint. From an Opmo standpoint, we have a totally different response for that. But the walkthrough for the season was, it was interesting. I was able to take P1 in a season about 2 seasons ago, and then didn't do so well in season 8. So season 9, I was pretty excited to come back and race. I'd done a lot of practice, not on the tracks themselves, but on the car, kind of leading up to this, prior to the choosing of the Mustang, and it gave me back what I put in. I feel we had a lot of really good finishes, podiums aside, just a lot of really good finishes, a lot of really good battles, and I couldn't ask for a better car. I think obviously I know it's all computer calculated, but whatever they did to this one, at least from this update in iRacing, the Mustang did a really good job. But obviously I had a lot of really good guys to race against. It wasn't like a public lobby where I had to watch my rear end. I had guys that knew how to get close and get aggressive and make it fun and make it hard. So yeah.
And I gotta say, just from my perspective in the commentary booth, having seen you drivers all throughout the season, the racing was phenomenal, but it was respectful all throughout the season as well, and I think you just alluded to that a couple of moments ago. But Tanner, congratulations on the victory here at Sebring, the second one on the season for you. And before we let you go and celebrate, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Yeah, Ron, of course. So this one actually goes to just Opmo as a whole, man. Like I said, none of us would be here without them, and it's kind of crazy because I've said it before, but I wasn't 100% sure where all this was going to take me. But it's led me to an amazing community, amazing group of guys. It's led me to Tiff, Diesel, Jason, and all the guys above. So it's been great. So thanks to everybody that's involved, beneficiaries, volunteers alike, and of course you guys for running the comms and running the stream. Thank you guys so much.
Well, it has been a privilege to be a part of this season and be a part of this series as well. You drivers out there on the racetrack have not given us a dull moment at all, so thank you as well for bringing the action out there on the racetrack. Congratulations on your second victory on the season, Tanner, and excited to see you back out on the racetrack wherever it is in the not-too-distant future, man. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Have a good night, guys.
And that right there was Tanner Masters, the driver who takes the victory in the Ben GT3 class in very odd circumstances. And I think for time constraints, that will be the last of the interviews that we get a chance to do from this season. But Charles, it was phenomenal. This race at Sebring was fantastic with so many curveballs thrown the drivers' ways and our way in the commentary booth as well. It was a fantastic season. I know you have some history with this series, and talking all throughout it, you were very happy to be a part of these broadcasts. And we're also out there on the racetrack at Road Atlanta a couple of weeks ago. I will not forget about that. But Charles, you have some experience with this series. I remember you being very excited to be a part of these broadcasts with Josh and myself. But final thoughts on a fantastically entertaining season here from Opmo.
Well, as the old saying goes, when you're in the military, they says the first rule is never volunteer for anything. But in this situation, I was the first person to put my hand up to say I wanted to do the broadcast. Just a fantastic group of fantastic organization, great group of people. I'll second what Ian said. Is just a fantastic group of guys, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Look forward to hopefully many more seasons being able to broadcast their races. And it sounds like we might have a little bit of a break for the winter season, but I know they do some time trials as well. So I may go in and see if I can do some time trials just to keep my skills as rusty as they normally are. and once again, just kind of look forward to it, and always happy to to come in and do a broadcast with you and with Josh. Just a fantastic job by both you guys, and very happy to join you guys on this journey.
I gotta say as well, Charles, it's been fantastic to have you in the commentary booth all throughout this season. We've done a disgusting amount of broadcasts together. I think probably over 100 at this point, but man, it's always nice to share the commentary booth with you. Gotta say as well, you don't really hear his voice too much. I don't think you've heard his voice at all throughout this series, but Josh, working on the cameras behind the scenes, always doing a fantastic job, and keeping up with the craziness at a race like this, especially with the rain as well. I'm sure his computer is on the verge of bursting into flames. It's an honorable job. He's described in the past that he kind of feels like the drummer of a band. Occasionally, you don't really get too much shtick, but if something goes wrong, usually the producer gets thrown by the wayside. But Josh, I mean, I've worked with him ever since he first started doing broadcasts here on Apex Racing TV, right up at the time I first started doing broadcasts here on Apex Racing TV. But Josh, always doing a wonderful job. I gotta say, they're not here on this broadcast. I think one of them's asleep, but Lee Thompson and Jonathan Grabowski, who we had in the production hauler earlier on throughout the season, they did a brilliant job as well in the races that they were here for. But this season was absolutely fantastic. The action came in spades in the 45-minute races that we had. But just because the action is ending from this season doesn't mean the world of Operation Motorsports is ending. We've talked about this a lot, but Operation Motorsports does a lot more than just this sim racing league. If you want to stay up to date with everything, visit operationmotorsports.org to learn more and just become a part of all of this as well. It's a fantastic organization with some fantastic partners, CrowdStrike and Advanced Sim Racing being the ones that we've talked a lot about throughout this season. It's been brilliant though, however, sadly, at least from my perspective, journey comes to an end tonight. So for one last time here from Operation eMotorsports Racing League, season number 9, and this final race of the season at Sebring, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Mullins, Charles Bichelle, joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie doing a wonderful job working all the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching, being a part of this racing, and being a part of this venture here on Apex Racing TV all throughout this season, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not-too-distant future.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.